Welcome to LeaderCast, episode 245. You're listening to LeaderCast, Transforming Missions podcast with Tim Bias and Sarah Thomas, providing you with resources to navigate the challenges and opportunities of courageous, Christ-centered leaders.
So, what's your listening style?
Before we answer that question, let me remind you that the show notes for this episode can be found at transformingmission.org/245. This is the fifth in a series on the essential leadership skill of listening. Why are we talking about listening? It seems there's been a continual decline in people's ability, capacity, and desire to listen to one another.
So today we're exploring 4 listening styles.
So recently I participated in a webinar with a communications company where they were talking about what it means to be a great communicator. They weren't talking about speaking or writing. They surprised me by talking about listening, and specifically our listening preferences and how 4 different listening styles are needed in every organization. Among these 4 different styles, each one of us need to learn how to listen in each of these ways, but we also have a preference for one of these ways of listening. So after hearing these listening styles, we wanted to explore with you how they might show up in leadership in the church. What's your listening style? There were 4 that they named: immerse, discern, advance, and support. So we're going to walk through each one of those and give you an example.
So let's start with the first one. Listening style, immerse. These people listen and follow all the details. They internalize the information and think deeply. If you're in a meeting, you might see these people taking notes because they want to remember the details. They may also be people who repeat back to you what you're saying. Often, these listeners will seek confirmation of what they've heard, saying things like, "Let me say back to you," or "Can I confirm what I heard you say?" These listeners also ask questions or provide moments of insight along the way. Immersed listeners are helpful during planning, during communicating difficult information, and during change. Hearing the phrase, "Let me say back to you what I heard," is a clarifying statement during conversation. It helps both the speaker and the listener know what's said, and if a decision was made and the details of that decision. It might be safe to say immersed listening is not needed when idea generation is taking place. And the reason for that? Well, the details haven't been determined yet, but this style could help you think deeply about the idea.
The second style is discern. These listeners might also be referred to as the red flag finders. They listen with an evaluative ear. They find the strengths of what is being shared as well as areas for improvement. They evaluate the information being shared and see the benefits, drawbacks, and yes, those red flags that shout, "Warning!" These listeners also uncover areas for improvement. Now, don't hear this style as it's all about critique. It's not. They help identify strengths and are great at listening for ways to improve. If you need someone to listen from multiple angles, the discern style is also helpful. So here's an example of where the discern style may be helpful in ministry. Phone calls are coming to the church office. The pastor is getting messages on email and text about a missions opportunity that is coming up at the church. The questions are good, helpful, and pointing to information that is needed for others to join in the ministry. A discern listener might respond, "It sounds like people are excited, want to participate, and are eager to help. As we get closer to the date for the mission project, can we share the different tasks that will be done with people who sign up so we're not trying to assign groups that morning? Even if we need to move a few people around, that's fine. It will take too much time if we try to do it all that morning. I was expecting 5 to 7 people, not 25 people. We'll utilize everyone. We simply need to share a little bit more information sooner." So you see how they helped to make the situation better and clarify what was happening. One last thing about the discern listening style. In psychologically safe environments, this listener will interject in the middle of conversations. I see something, I hear something that's concerning, or I see a connection to X, Y, and Z.
Am I hearing you correctly?
Hello, immersed listening style. Sorry, I interrupted you.
Sarah, it sounds like lots of meetings that I've been in, but what I want to know, am I hearing you correctly that in a psychologically safe environment, this person will speak up and point out what they see? They'll ask questions. They'll seek to be helpful. But in places without that safety, that won't happen. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, that is exactly what I am saying. People need a psychologically safe environment to share their perspective. If it's not safe, they're not going to talk, let alone raise questions. Does that help to clarify?
It does. And I've got lots of thoughts about meetings that I've been in and how I might need to be more patient.
I think the other thing that can happen is when operating from the discern style, when it's not needed or welcome. And that might be where you were going. So what do I mean by that? Let's say someone shares a new idea and it's for information purposes only. And this discern style jumps in with strengths and weaknesses and starts evaluating what is happening. Not helpful. So as you can see from these first two listening styles, there are places that it's appropriate and places that it's not appropriate to leverage these different styles.
You are correct. I've been on the receiving end of that, and I confess I've been on the giving end too.
We all have, and that's why we're exploring these today.
So let's move to the third listening style. That's the advanced listening style. The advanced style could also be called the red flag fixers. If the discern style of listening is a red flag finder, then the advanced style listening is the fixer of those red flags. Now, this style wants results and wants things to happen quickly. So they listen by focusing on the next steps and are able to process information quickly. They're problem solvers. So to pick up from the example in our discern listening style, they're the ones who say, well, I'll ask Helen to add a form to the bottom of the web page about the different service opportunities for the day. And then we'll have someone first and second choice at the check-in and direct people appropriately that morning. As advanced listeners hear information, they process what to do with it. And ultimately, they want to advance processes and people. They're quick starts. They take action once a direct decision is made, the meeting concludes, or the instructions are given. They are on it. So let me give you an example. Take the chair of the children's ministry sitting in an Advent planning team. A decision's made to have a church-wide devotional for families. So the chair of the children's ministry, listening with an advanced style, might respond, I'll connect with Margaret in the adult ministry and Jesse with the youth ministry to identify our options, and we'll send you our findings in the next week. Well, where the advanced style is not helpful is information shared and someone listens with the advanced style and takes it upon themselves to act when it was only for information. I emphasize that because as a lead pastor, I've been in staff meetings where that's happened often. And sometimes we get embarrassed because just sharing information and the next thing we know, there's an announcement going out about something. I think that's what we're talking about.
It sure is. The fourth listening style is support. So this style prioritizes the person over the content. They will validate and support the person speaking and even mirror the speaker's emotion. The support listening style puts their self-interests aside because they want to be a trusted confidant. So where is the support listening style helpful in ministry leadership? If you want someone to commiserate with or to celebrate with you, the support style is great. If you're looking for pastoral care, the support listening style is great. If you're celebrating a new hire on staff or want to share the good news with someone, find someone who has the support listening style. If you're looking for action, this is not the listening style that is needed in that moment.
So, Sarah, which style is the best for Christ-centered leaders?
So, as I alluded to as we were getting started, these aren't good, bad, or better listening styles. They're different listening styles needed in any meeting, in any organization, in any church. The good news, bad news of this is we all have a preference. You might call it even a default. So as Tim and I walked through each one of those styles, you probably found yourself saying, oh, I do that. And you might have found yourself saying that in multiple places. We can all learn the styles that are not our go-to styles. When it comes to listening, there are at least two types of communication at play. There's expressive communication that is primarily about speaking and writing. What we've been talking about is the receptive communication, that listening and the empathy. So when we take the place of a receptive communicator, our role, and listen to what I'm about to say carefully, because this is where I think we mess it up. Our role as a receptive communicator is to focus on what the speaker wants. When we focus on what the speaker wants, the next logical question is, what style of listening is appropriate?
Well, we've all been in a situation where we just needed to vent, and the style most needed here is support listening. Imagine what happens when the advanced listener style shows up. They're ready to take action and fix it, but that's not what the speaker needs. Another question to ask is, what does the speaker want to feel? If they want to feel heard, again, you need the support listener. If they want to feel like the problem's going to be fixed, you want an advanced listener style. And if you want someone to capture all the details and take the next step, you may want to employ the immersed listener style. If you want help making a decision, weighing the pros and cons, you likely want to gravitate towards discern listener style.
So what Tim just did for you there is to highlight where each of these styles might be utilized once again. And each one of us has one of these styles that comes most naturally to us. And again, we can also learn to employ the other styles. Sometimes the expressive communicator, the person who is speaking or writing, doesn't do a great job of articulating what they want. So you might be saying, well, what do you do then? What if you don't know what the speaker wants? What if you don't know what the writer wants? I've been known to ask, what is it you want or need? We're not mind readers. But when we ask a person, what is it that they want, then we know what our role is. And as listeners, then it's our role to adjust our patterns and our preferences and to listen in a different way. Now, because we have preferences, it takes practice to do this. Just like listening to God takes practice, and I might be teasing you with what's coming next on the podcast, but before we get there and conclude this episode, let me ask Tim to share his closing words of wisdom on these listening styles that we've been talking about.
Well, Sarah, from the very beginning, you've had me wondering what my style of listening is. Well, I can guess what it would be, and I can also, if I'm honest with myself, know where I need some help with some other styles of listening. And we've kind of laughed back and forth about people that we know in meetings who might be an example of each of these. What I'm realizing is that there are times that I stand in the way, not because I intend to, but it's because I'm not listening the way the speaker needs me to listen. And that's what I've learned out of this podcast today. The listening's not about me. The listening truly to communicate is about the people who are speaking and how we respond to one another to the need. And so I'm going to go back to something I've said over and over on these 240 plus podcasts. And that is, man, I wish I'd known this earlier in my ministry. This would have been really helpful.
Well, I will say, Tim, I have experienced you with all four of these styles. And I'll say this just to tease with you, mostly in appropriate ways. No, seriously, mostly in appropriate ways. But yeah, when I heard them, I was like, oh gosh, there have been moments that, why didn't I just shut up and listen? Because all they really needed was they needed that support listening style. Or, oh, you wanted me to act on this, but there was never an indication, take this and run with it. And so I was taking it as information and getting the details down, and I could tell you what it was about, but I didn't do anything with it. Or my default is honestly to evaluate. As I was listening to the webinar and they got to the discern style, I thought, oh my gosh, that is how I have been taught to listen in school, that I've been taught to evaluate everything and to sort things out and to recognize that sometimes that's not helpful because that's not what is needed in that moment. As you said, that's not what the speaker wants from me. And so, yeah, just to raise that awareness as we think about how we're interacting with one another and what is needed in that moment. And I do it naturally in coaching conversations, but I don't think I always do it naturally in the casual conversation or in meeting situations. Okay, what do you want from us? What's the expectation here? So anything else that you want to add to that?
Well, you bring something else to mind, and it's something that we've talked about in previous podcasts in our listening series. And that is, listening is really about relationship. And in terms of relationship, we're always, at least from my perspective, we're always working in a way to connect with the people with whom we're in relationship. And if these styles help us develop those relationships, then these styles are not just tactics to be able to get where we want to go. They're actually tools for developing relationships that will allow us to live in community together. And for me, that's a valuable learning.
Right. Because imagine, Tim, hearing me say, my default is going to the discern listening style. You might then say to me, Sarah, I know what your default is. I know you're always evaluating information. What I need from you right now is just hear me out. I don't need you to do anything. I don't need you to evaluate it. Just hear me out. That's all I need. And so there's a clarity that comes in that in the relationships as well, of being able to name what you need. We've said this before on podcasts, and to be in relationship with someone to say, okay, yeah, I can provide that to you. I can turn off that part of my brain and not say, oh, this is how we could improve it, or this is what we could do with it. I can just listen. Sometimes I just need a reminder. That's all you need from me. So, yeah.
So I may be flippant at times when I do this, but you've just helped me know why I do what I do. You've heard me say more than once, I need you to be my therapist here.
Right.
And what I'm needing is a support listener.
Right. Right. Yeah. And when you say that, I know, okay, Sarah, Tim doesn't need you to fix anything. He doesn't need you to evaluate what's happening. Just listen to what is going on. Now, I do think that I usually ask you some questions, And
Oh, yeah. How can you not do that? That's just who you are.
and sometimes that does lead to something else, but in that moment, yeah, that's when you say that, that is a wonderful trigger of support listening style. So,
Yeah.
as we wrap this episode up, our big question for you is, what's your go-to listening style? Is it the immerse style, discern style, advanced style, or support style? Perhaps you find yourself using a combination of all four. The next time you are in conversation with someone, the next time you are listening, ask yourself, what does the person that I'm speaking to want from me? Then adjust your listening style. You can find show notes for this episode at transformingmission.org/podcast. And you're looking for episode 245. So remember, who you are is how you lead. Bye for now.